Chavtes. Kvarduber li'il, earlier, meaning in a previous Fabrengen to this Fabrengen, the Rebbe had already spoken about, the Sipar HaGeulah Mitzrayim, the Parashas HaTorah, the Shavuos Eila, about the relating of the redemption from Mitzrayim and the Parashas of the Torah of these weeks. HaGeulah Mitzrayim B'Poyol, the actual redemption from Mitzrayim, he B'Parashas Boy, Shabon Namar B'Etzem Hayom Hazeh Yotzu Goyim Mitzrayim. In the end of last week's parsha, it says, in this very day, the Jewish people went out of the land of Mitzrayim. Lefnei prior to Parshas Boy, Boaz Cholos HaGeulah, Parshas Va'era, comes the beginning of the redemption. In Parshas Va'era, Sheba Mesupar Oidus HaMakis. That there it's related about the plagues. V'arei kishischilu HaMakis. The Chazal tell us that when the plagues began against the Egyptians, Batla Avoidam Aviseinu Mitzrayim, it ceased being any enslavement to our forefathers in Mitzrayim. So he continues top of the next page. V'oid lifnei, even prior to when it starts relating about the plagues in Parshas Va'era, B'tchilas HaParsha Nemar, at the beginning of the Parsha, it says, L'chein amor l'bnei Yisrael. Therefore tell the Bnei Yisrael, Ani Havaya. What is the idea of telling Bnei Yisrael, I am Havaya? Shezoi ha'idah v'ascholam ala gilui d'shem Havaya del Elam. That is the notification and the beginning about the revelation of the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei of above. Shekosher Geulah Megalos Mitzrayim. It's connected with the redemption from the exile Mitzrayim. Shigam haSchola la Geulah mitzvah shleim ala namak meitzes chomeres Mitzrayim v'goymer. It's also this revelation that took place at the beginning of Parshas Va'era that says, I am Havaya. Not only is it a precursor and an introduction to the Geulah from Mitzrayim, but it's also the beginning of the true and complete redemption, because we say, as your days of going out of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders when Moshiach comes. Now we go to our parsha. Following this comes Parshas B'Shalach. That is the parsha that we are in now. Hascholas HaParsha, the beginning of the parsha is Vayhi B'Shalach Parei Sa'om. It was when Parei sent out the nation. That's explained concerning this in the Mamor Medal Terebe on the Parsha of the week called Torah Oir. Sheparei Mishaleach Pe'eros V'Anofim V'Oisa Pri Lamaylo Es Ha'om, that Parei would send out these branches and shoots, and he would be making fruits like the branches of a tree that gives forth different branches and shoots and so on to be able to grow fruit above Es Ha'am, through and with the nation, Shaydei Galusam b'Mitzrayim, through the Yidden being in exile in Mitzrayim, V'ishtabdusam b'hem, and through the Jewish people being enslaved, or in Egypt, Garmu, they caused Shenisalu b'chinas nitzutze elikim, that they were elevated, the sparks of godliness, Shenoflu Shamba b'shviras hakelim, that fell over there in Mitzrayim, in the breaking of the vessels. Hu b'chinas koyach hatzameach, that is the power of growth, the power of the vegetation, latzmiach Yeshuas Yisrael, to cause that should sprout forth the salvations of the Jewish people. Like it says, uparoi hikriv. It doesn't say uparoi korov, which is the appropriate Hebrew usage, which would mean paroi got closer to the Jewish people, but paroi hikriv, paroi brought close. What does it mean? He brought close. Does Chazal say Vam Razal shehikriv es liban sheYisrael lavim shebeshamayim, that paroi caused that the hearts of the Yidden became closer to their Father in heaven. This was through the fact that the Yidden were elevating the sparks of Mitzrayim. This is similar than the physical. We know that the physical pari sent along with the Yidden all types of animals that would be offered up as korbanos to sacrifice for Hashem. If each Amr like Moshe Rabbeinu told Pari, not only will we not leave our animals behind, but instead, also you will place in our hands all types of offerings, and so we will do, and we will offer them up for Hashem. And that was an actuality that Pari actually sent along animals to be sacrificed. In other words, Pari brought things to be elevated. So too in the inner matter of things, he sent along with the Yidden the sparks of holiness that were in Egypt. That the Jewish people took along the sparks of holiness when they were leaving Mitzrayim. They took along with them these sparks of holiness. Lamed. And the knowledge of this thing, that the very exile itself causes the ascent of the redemption. This influences that it should be easier while we are still found in exile. Not only do we know surely that we are going to leave the exile, Eliyasedem is even more so. We know that in every moment that we are found in a state and situation of exile, it is a preparation for our leaving the Geulah to a state of Geulah. Therefore, the way we look at every moment in Geulah, not like a moment in exile, but rather like a moment of a preparation for the redemption. The explanation for this is, why is it considered that every moment of Geulah is not a moment of Geulah, but rather it's a moment of preparation for redemption? Every action, every activity that a Yid does on a daily basis throughout his entire time spending his time in Geulah, he is illuminating another part in this physical material world. And therefore, since he illuminates it, so he's refining and purifying another part in the physical material world. Another part of Klippas Noiga. Through doing all of the above, we affect and we influence the ultimate completion and perfection of the days of Moshiach. That's the revelation of the infinite light of Hashem in this physical world. Like it's explained at length in Tanya, that when we all are refining the Klippas Noiga of this world, so that causes that the covering of the infinite light of Hashem becomes more and more porous, until the Klippas Noiga becomes totally absorbed in the infinite light of Hashem, and then Hashem's very essence is revealed in the coming of Moshiach. Since that is the case, how they move, and so it's understood, we have to look at every moment that we are obligated. We have to be in Geulah Loi k'may rega shel golus. We shouldn't look at it as a moment of exile. Ela k'may rega shel achana v'agdama l'geulah. But we have to look at it as a moment of preparation and a preface, an introduction to Geulah. V'oz nokol yoser li smoided in koshi ha'golus v'lavid avidosa k'deboy. Then it's easier to deal with the difficulties of the exile and to do the person's service the way they're supposed to do it. The Rebbe adds, Zois v'oid, in addition to this, Sha'avoidahi ba'oifen sha'adam margish as atzmei leben choyrim ershenitin golos. The avoida is in such a way that the person feels themselves as if they are a free person. He's already not in golos. V'hainu sha'aneshama b'mayim d'matzav shel cherus, that the soul is in a state, in a situation of freedom. And his work in Golus is like a free person. Since I am in a state of freedom, my purpose here is to help take out someone else from Golus that's in a state of exile. It's in the state of captivity, because I'm not a captive anymore. This expresses itself in the belief in the coming of Moshiach, that he will come daily, not in a way that's transcendent, meaning that it doesn't permeate him. It's not something that he's feeling, but rather a belief that permeates all his soul powers in an internalized fashion. This belief itself extracts him from the limitations of shalagolas, from the boundaries and limitations of exile. Therefore, he could do his service and his work without taking consideration the constraints and boundaries that are from the perspective that come about from exile. That's the explanation, the well-known saying of the Baal Shem Tov, Shekol echad miYisrael yochol lachzis nor al gaba mitpachas dur k'shrim l'atayim tefat sheila. Every single Jew can cross a river while standing on a handkerchief. El shetzarich lahamin b'zeh, but he has to believe in it. This is taken from a story that happened with the Baal Shem Tov, that he once had to cross a river, and he crossed the river by pulling out a handkerchief and standing on it. And there was, I think, if I remember correctly, a simple Jew that witnessed this, and he did the same thing, and he crossed the river. And the Baal Shem Tov explained that because of that person's emunah pshuta, because of his simple faith, he was able to do so. When the faith and belief is not in a transcendent way beyond his experience, but it's something that permeates him. So then it establishes and sets a person up in his entirety with all his 248 limbs and his 365 blood vessels and sinews, etc. In this state of the belief. So then it's not a wonder that he's ruling over nature, because the person's being is beyond nature. The entire existence of nature was only created to serve the Yid. And Chazal say right away, Rashi brings at the beginning of Chumash, Bereishis. What's the meaning of the word Bereishis? There's Beis, Reishis. Two things are called Reishis. Bishvil Yisrael shenikru Reishis. For the Yidden that are called Reishis, the world was created. Since by this person, that his emunah is something that permeates him. So the idea that he is the first to creation is in a revealed way by him, Poyel who kol mashu tzarech lifel beim mafriya, so he is able to affect everything. He's supposed to and needs to influence and affect without any disruption. So here the Rebbe is going to bring a story from the Gemara, Islam and Aleph, 2 paragraphs on the bottom of the page. According to this, we could also explain what the Gemara relates. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair have a causal opinion shvui. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair was traveling for the sake of redeeming a captive. He met up with the river Ginoi Amarlei, so he couldn't cross it. He had no means to cross this river. Amarlei, so Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said to the river Ginoi Chalokli Meimach Veverbach, Ginoi, split your waters, and so I should be able to cross your river. Amarlei, so the river told Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, you are on the way to doing the will of your maker. In other words, you are going to redeem captives, which is a mitzvah. But I'm also going to fulfill the will of my maker. All rivers flow to the sea by the decree of the king. So in other words, why does your command take your commandment, your mitzvah, take preference over my mitzvah? I have a mitzvah to flow. You have a mitzvah to do pidyon shvuyim. By what right does the fact that you have to fulfill the mitzvah of pidyon shvuyim take precedence over my mitzvah? Amar lei, so Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair answered the river, Im atachaylik, if you do not split, I decree upon you that waters will never cross your river. In other words, you'll dry up. So the river listened and he split for him. So the Rebbe asks, seemingly, what was the response to the logical answer that the river gave him? Seemingly, if you're not splitting, I decree upon you that no waters will cross you forever. It's not at all responding to the complaint that the river had. Because the complaint of the river was just like Pinchas ben Yair needs to fulfill the mitzvah that he was commanded, which is pidyon shvuyim, redeeming captives. That he also has to fulfill the job. The river also has to fulfill the job which he was created for. That his waters should be running. If so, what's the response? What's he saying? If you don't split, I decree upon you that no waters will cross in you. You didn't answer and respond to a seemingly logical response of the river. So the Rebbe explains the understanding of this matter is that by this response, the Pinchas ben Yair explained to the river, the river claimed, we are the same. I have a mitzvah, you have a mitzvah. So the Pinchas ben Yair was telling him, you cannot compare yourself to me. Since a Jew is by his very essence beyond nature, automatically also the mitzvahs that he was given to effect in nature are beyond nature. Therefore the nature of the world cannot oppose the activity of a Jew in fulfillment of mitzvahs. That's what Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair answered the river on the river's complaint. that I am also going to fulfill the will of my Maker. And he told them, I decree that you will dry up if you don't allow me to cross. The content of the response of Rabbi Yair was שהתפקיד של נער הגינוי שהוא מימוב שויטים ולמטה מהתפקיד של היהודי לעשות mitzvah. The job that the river has to rush and flow is lower than the job of a yid to do a mitzvah. V'harai, and the proof that it's lower is b'koiche shel Yehudi ligzer al nar shel yavru b'mayim lo'olam. That's the capability of a Jew to decree on a river that no water will ever cross through it. Valderech Zadorsh Chazal B'Yerushalmi. Similarly, the Chazal had darshaned in Yerushalmi al Aposik. It says Lakel Goimer Alai Shalidei Psak Din Shal Bezdin Nasashinu B'Teva Olam. When Bezdin rules about something, they change the actual nature that's embedded in the world. Kivim Shebezdin Hu Lamaylam Ateva, since Bezdin is beyond nature. V'cheinu Eitzel Kol Yehudi, so too is by every Jew. If he is following and he's going with the power of Torah, he acts according to Shulchan Aruch, in such a manner that the Torah permeates not only his mind but also his feeling. In all the 613 soul powers and his body. Then he rules over nature. He could say to the river, in a similar vein to other matters of the world, I decree upon you that you will not exist if you do not assist me in doing a mitzvah. So he says in Lamed Beis, this is also the response to the fact that sometimes it seems to be they demand things that seemingly has no natural, no room in the laws of nature. First and foremost, those who listened to the tzaddikim, and they went ahead and they followed and they did what they were commanded, they saw. And not only were there no obstacles from the perspective of nature, just the opposite. That nature itself assisted. And in general, this is a question that's not responding, it's non sequitur. In other words, you're telling me, how can the Rabbeim ask me of something that's unnatural? When it's speaking about a Jew who has free choice, and he is a representative of Hashem to fulfill the will of Hashem in the existence of nature, so it's not the capability of the laws of nature to oppose it. As long as the Jew's intention is only and solely to fulfill the will of the Creator. So too, it's when we find ourselves in the time of Geulah, and there's seemingly different types of constraints and boundaries. Therefore, it seems to be that we cannot demand that we should act like in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, acting beyond the letter of law, etc. Key. So the Rebbe says, when is this talking about that a Jew says that now is not the time of the Beis Hamikdash? If a Jew would have to be in Geulah because of his nature. But the truth is, a Yid from the perspective of his nature, nature that about it says in Tanya, Teva we had in Tanya recently, Chitas, that is only a borrowed term for anything that is not rational and understood. Al be'emes, but in truth, the nature of a Jewish soul is beyond understanding. He finds himself beyond 10 handbreadths. Beyond this world. Beyond the world of Brit Sirasiya, beyond the world of Atzilus, his location is in Hashem's essence. From this awesome perch, he descended down here to fulfill the will of Hashem. Since the will of Hashem is that there should be a place where there could be work and service, because of that there's a toy and there's a game. What's the toy? What's the game? It's not a reality. It's only a game. Geulah, that there's an exile. There's constraints and boundaries. Despite all the Geulas and all the boundaries and so on, the person is not affected by it. He goes confidently on his way in truth and with sincerity to fulfill the will of Hashem. And then all the concealments and coverings are nullified. Like we find by Avram Avinu, on his way going to the Akedah to fulfill the will of Hashem, Amad B'fanav Nahar. So it says the Satan disguised himself as a river, but all Avram Avinu saw was a river in front of him. So what happened? Avram Avinu said, this is not something that's going to stop me from doing my mission. When he wasn't affected by it, he began to go and cross within the river, then the river ceased to exist. In similar vein and other things similar to this. And now the Rebbe takes it a step further. It's not just that we are higher than nature, and therefore we can force nature to do according to our will, but nature really wants to do what we want. Another idea in how the laws of nature does not stand in opposition to when a Yid has to do what he has to do. Also matters of nature on their own. They want to become refined through the service of a person. On that pasuk, the Baal Shem Tov says, the sparks of holiness that's in food and drink, the sparks in the food that I'm eating desire, and they're looking to become connected to holiness. How? Through a person refining them. But so a person should receive reward for his service. The matter has to come through toil and effort, not in such a way that the food falls automatically into his mouth. This is also an explanation in the story of my father-in-law about his father, the Rebbe Rashab. Once during eating, when he took some type of food with a fork, so the food slipped off back into the plate. He doesn't want yet. In other words, the food does not want yet to become this batter. That's why it slipped off the fork. What's the meaning behind that story? The idea of eating is doing a favor for the food. How is it possible that the food slipped off of the fork? And it caused an additional delay, an obstacle that they still would not refine it. So it's specifically in every single one, man and woman, also in this generation. When a Jew affects upon themselves, influences themselves, to fulfill his job without any ulterior motives, he puts aside his personal interests, that they should not get mixed into his avoidam. He only wants to fulfill the will of the tzaddik and the leader of generation. It's not the tzaddik and the leader of generation is not saying his own personal will. He's only revealing what the will of Hashem is. Then all types of concealments and coverings are nullified. Therefore, automatically, despite the concealments and the coverings that come about because of the existence of Klippa and the other side, and how much more so to the great concealment and covering because the Klippa Sitrachra is enclosed in the Jew, that he wants to ruin those matters that are connected with the leader of generation that sacrificed his life for them and devoted his life for them. It's sure that all these concealments will cease. We have to be permeated with the awareness that we're involved in fulfilling the mission of the leader of the generation. Therefore, we're going out of power and strength, knowing that it's prohibited to give in to those that want to oppose the leader, since this is not their own personal thing, but it belongs to the one who sent them. Let's skip over further. Let's go to 4 paragraphs in the bottom of the page. When speaking about a concealment that's not enclosed in a Jew, then the concealment is not so powerful. It's sure if we are only going to go with a full strength and courage and independence to fulfill the will of the one who sent them, the Manigador, the leader of generation, surely it will be the activity in a successful manner. And then, like the words of the Rebbe, since Hashem does not withhold the reward of every and any creation, will come down bracha and success also in the individual person's matters, that the one who is doing the service needs his success in his own personal matters, and children, in life and in sustenance, in a comfortable manner.